Hello, everyone. Welcome to SoulFull Travel Adventures with me, your host, Chameice Daniel. And today I would love to dive into force versus flow. I think this is ever so important currently, with so much global shifts and change that we're experiencing. And many of you have heard me talk about repeatedly, even building up into this year, that this year was going to be a big year of sovereignty, which can be a little perplexing for people, especially when they're seeing everything that's going on, all of the fighting and the chaos and things like that. But what's important that we understand is we get huge energetic streams around sovereignty, around really diving in and acknowledging our ability to choose, because that's what anchoring into our sovereignty is at its most fundamental level. It's acknowledging our ability to choose, our ability to create what we desire, focus on action in our own lives. So anytime we're presented with a very high frequency of sovereignty, what it first must do is run out anything that's contrary to us holding that frequency in its purest form. This means that we often do a very, very deep dive into our programming, into any agreements or beliefs that we've been exposed to that are contradictory to our sovereignty, our ability to choose consciously. And so what we're seeing this year, what we're seeing play out right now before our very eyes, is everyone learning how to master their sovereignty by releasing their programming. Anything that they've been taught or told that they do not have a choice in, anywhere that they're being manipulated, influenced, or bullied, or even intimidated into believing what someone else wants them to believe. Because that's the fundamental basics of what programming is. Programming is something that's contrary to your personal truth. Your truth may be completely different than someone else's based on your perspective, based on your level of personal empowerment, based on your level of personal responsibility, your perspective. So what we need to understand is programming teaches us not to trust ourselves, not to trust our own instincts, to not trust what our heart and our soul is telling us. It can even tell us not to believe our own eyes. What we saw, we can be told that what you saw isn't what happened, isn't the truth. So our entire lives, we need to understand and remember that we're often taught and told things that are extraordinarily contrary to what is our personal truth. We're told to listen to our parents and believe every word. We don't take into consideration their programming, the habits that they picked up from their parents, the perspectives, the agreements, the beliefs, and how they may be contrary to what we truly believe and feel at a soul level. Same with our teachers, our bosses, our government officials, religious leaders, where we have this high level of exposure all around us during our most formative years, which are 0 to 7, telling us who we should be, what we should want, what we should believe in, what should be important to us, what we should value. But I mean, just looking at it at its most fundamental level, where are we ever taught to do what makes us happy, to trust what we believe, to trust what feels right for us? I don't believe that we are, especially in our formative years. We're never taught how to go within and search for the truth. We're never taught how to rely on our instincts. We're never taught that how to action, how to create what we want and what we truly desire. We're constantly, told rhetoric that reaffirms that we don't have a choice, that we don't have power, that we don't have ability to create exactly what we want. And oftentimes those people that do go out and try to do those things, they're told they're selfish, greedy, any number of things, which only confuses the situation and our internal narrative even more. Because then when we do try to even go out and be successful and live with purpose and passion, and we thrive doing it, we're often given examples of how, people are greedy. And it's not to say that there aren't many people that aren't greedy. It's just, look at this narrative that's constantly being thrown in our face. So that's the difference between force and flow. Force is that programming. Force is having something forced upon you, not being given the opportunity to feel into your own truth and speak your own truth and live your own truth. Because speaking, living, honoring your own truth is being in your flow. That's doing what comes natural to you. That's being in a space of reverence for yourself and what you're creating in your life. And you take full responsibility for every aspect of it. You take full responsibility for what you're creating in your life. If something goes wrong, then you need to make a choice to self-correct. You need to make a choice that supports the creating momentum into what you want to move into. You don't go into blame or shame. You don't blame someone else for any obstacles or situations that they may create that may be limiting your ability to create effortlessly. Instead, if you're presented with those situations or those people, you walk away from them immediately. That because that's you being in your ability to make a choice. This does not work for me because I'm surrounded by people or situations that are making things more difficult than they need to be. They're not allowing me to live my truth and create effortlessly. And so that's what we're really moving into this year is, again, that flow, not going into blame or shame, not going into force because we're having a difficult time, moving into our sovereignty, our ability to choose, our power to create. We're not acknowledging our power to create. We're not taking responsibility for our choices, for not walking away, not speaking our truth, and not setting boundaries. Instead, we just immediately go into blaming other people if we're not in our sovereignty, and we must run that out. We must run all of those programs out. So that's what I would like to dive into deeper and deeper during this discussion is some real big points that I am seeing arise this year that are really blocking people from being able to acknowledge and claim their right to their sovereignty. Not being able to hold those lines that are coming in. Because this is ever so important. It's only going to continue to strengthen. So if we're not on a personal, individual level anchoring into this, then it's only going to strengthen those lines. We're only going to see more and more chaos. So we need to be the points of inspiration, the examples. We need to set an example so people even know how to get here. So the first way we do that is by understanding all of these points of programming, all of the different places and spaces that we've been told we do not have the power to create. So if you will stay with me for this 1 hour, we will dive deeper and deeper into these points of programming. And we'll be right back after this brief commercial on how to flow versus force. We'll be right back. Welcome back to SoulFull Travel Adventures with me, Chameice Daniel. And our topic of discussion today is flow versus force. So, as I was stating previously about programming, one of my favorite ways to really check in and check your programming and see how you're aligning with your truth is by doing a deep dive into understanding your beliefs, understanding what you truly believe in. And one of the best ways that we can do this is through our conversations we have in a variety of our relationships, even on social media or things like that. So something that I find really intriguing that might be a great example is lately with everything that's going on, is I've had the opportunity to have many conversations with diverse groups of people about perspectives on all of these situations. And one of the most intriguing things that I've discovered is oftentimes when I'm talking to people, and I ask them about their perspectives on a certain situation. Why do you believe what you believe? Why is that your perspective? Have you done research? Have you watched videos on events that transpired? Have you seen it for yourself? Have you researched it for yourself? Are you thinking for yourself? Or are you just being spoon-fed narratives? Are you just being spoon-fed information? And what I often discover is, interestingly, so many people so many times will tell me that they have not really done much research, or they have not watched a specific video about events that transpired. Basically, they have no firsthand information. They have not done any research. They have not looked into any of the narratives any deeper, but they are wholly fixed on their perspective without having really thought about it or really dove into it for themselves. And I find it so interesting how argumentative people can be. They can often go into even name calling and be incredibly judgmental when you have done an immense amount of research, or you have watched things firsthand with your own eyes, and they will argue with you and tell you that the information you have researched is infactual, the video you watched is not true, many things, even though they themselves have done none of those things. So my first question would be, when you are having a conversation with someone and they are explaining their perspective and you are sharing your perspective, what is your perspective based on? Have you really thought about it? Why do I believe this? Why is this important to me? And if you're, having a conversation with someone and you're having a disagreement, are you disagreeing with someone based on factual information? Have you done the legwork? Have you vested your time and energy into completely understanding why you believe what you believe? I mean, deep, really thought about it, really reached into that bucket and really researched it. If you haven't, why are you arguing with someone that has? Why would you be so invested in it when you haven't even invested any of your time in it? So that's one big thing. That's a really big programming indicator that I like to bring up to people. Why do you believe what you believe if you haven't even taken any time? You haven't made it a priority in your life to understand it at a deep level. Why are you even spending any more time or energy with this, even with an argument? Why don't you move on to something that is intriguing, is interesting for you? What's important to you? If it's not this because you're not willing to put any time or energy into it, then why not just leave it to people who have? Why argue with people who have done those things? Because it is vitally important to them. It's something they're very passionate about, and that's why they do the research. Move on to things that inspire that much passion in you, that you're willing to investigate and learn more and know the subject matter. Find those things for you because that's your niche. Dive into those things that you're willing to invest your time and energy into and your money into, because if you're not willing to do that, then it must not be that important to you. So there's no point in arguing with people who it's very important to and they have vested that time or energy. So what makes you tick? Have you ever really sat down and thought about, why do I believe what I believe? Why is this important to me? How can I be part of, if this is important to me, how can I be part of creating change? How can I be part of creating harmonic momentum within this particular subject? Start putting some skin in the game if it's truly important to you. Start discovering who you are, your unique gifts, your flow. What makes you flow? What inspires you? And stay out of the things that are kind of being forced upon you, the narratives, the perspectives, the programs that are being forced upon you, where you're wasting a lot of time and energy arguing with people that have put an immense amount of time and energy into it. Save your energy. Focus on things that would bring joy and bliss into your life, that would create passion. So that's the other point of sovereignty is the biggest one is not forcing our perspectives or beliefs, what we desire, on other people. We create it for ourselves. It's important to us. So we do it for ourselves. We don't expect other people. Other people don't have to jump on our bandwagon. They don't have to join us because it may not be important to them. It's not part of their journey. So that's part of our flow, is staying focused on what's important to us. Creating the change that we desire with our own hands. We eventually find people that align with that desire and that passion, and they too decide to help be part of that change and get their hands dirty. So one of the most fundamental things of being sovereignty is not forcing everything upon everyone else, not being part of the problem. So within a spiritual community and energetic community, this means we're also not forcing our will upon playing with other people's energy, manipulating or influencing people's energy. If we can move energy, if we can create create frequency alignments. We don't go in and dabble in other people's energy. We respect their boundaries. We don't read them without their permission. I see this so often in spiritual communities. So often I see people say, well, I can see, that your energy needs this, or you need to do this, or this, or you're a false light worker, or any number of things. That's none of our business. They didn't give us permission to read into them. If we can see an alignment because it just pops up, which happens to many of us, I know it happens to me all the time. When we see that, then we just understand we're in a different space than them. We don't go in there and fix it without their permission. We don't play in it without their permission. We don't read it without their permission. We don't cram it down their throat. We don't make them feel guilty. We just realize that we're not in alignment, and we move into more and more people that are in alignment with who we are and what we are, instead of constantly interfering and manipulating other people. And the same goes for, I see a lot of situations where within spiritual communities, especially from spiritual leaders, where they'll tell people that person's higher self told them to do these things, told them what they needed to have done. Again, that's incredibly manipulative. It's not your job or your place to go in and interfere with people's structure, with their free will to have the journey that they need to have or that they want to experience. So be really, really careful with if you're manipulating and influencing other people, if you're forcing other people into what you believe is for their highest good, because you don't know. It's not your place. You focus on what you need to do. If they ask you for help, ask you for assistance, that's one thing. But if they're not asking, it's not your place. And you definitely, even if you sense something, even if they are in a session and you can sense that, their higher self, any of their connections are off, and they give you permission to work on that. But then if they explain to you that that's not what they want, any of the alignments that you may speak to them, it's not your place to go in and tell them, your higher self told me it was fine to do that, so it doesn't matter what you say. So we need to be really, really careful that we're being in our integrity and we're not forcing other people into things that they don't want to align with. Even if it may be, better for them, it may save them a lot of heartache and pain. If they're not asking for it and they don't want it, it's not our place to meddle. So maybe check in and see if you truly believe in sovereignty, if you are supporting other people's sovereignty as well, because that's where it begins. If you're violating other people's sovereignty, where are you also allowing yourself to believe in disempowered alignments? Because everything always comes from within. There's still something rattling around in there. So we'll be right back after this commercial break. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to SoulFull Travel Adventures with me, Chameice Daniel. And today we're discussing flow versus force. And so where we left off with forcing, our perspectives and our opinions and our beliefs on other people, and how that violates sovereignty in all of its forms. And so I want to do, a little deeper dive into the many aspects of this and the many venues and the many places where I see this happening, just so you can use it as food for thought. You can understand it. You can think about it. You can go deeper into your own sovereignty lines and to acclimating into sovereignty. So one of the other ways that I'm seeing people really force their opinions and perspectives on other people, and I generally see this, again, due to programming. And the tricky thing about programming is we can be so fixated on it, so dependent on it because it's all we've ever known, that we don't even realize that it isn't something we truly believe in, because it's been it could be a perspective that's been part of our life our entire lifetime. So we can become very fixated on it, very dependent on those views because we know nothing else. And so one of the points of attachment that I also like to evaluate is when you are having a conversation with someone that's triggering you. Again, our relationships, our conversations are great indicators. They're great observation points to help us truly understand our perspectives and go really deep into them and gain that clarity, and that awareness and that understanding so that we're living our own truth. Nothing's accidentally got in there. So when you're having conversations with someone, how easily are you triggered? How easily does someone that does not hold the same belief as you, how deeply does it begin to trigger you? Does it trigger you so much that you go into name calling? That you start criticizing them as a person, their character? Do you even go so far as to start saying that they're crazy, implying that they have a mental illness simply because they do not believe what you believe? Because that's gaslighting. That's gaslighting 101. As to one of the biggest tactics of gaslighting is telling people that they have a mental illness so they begin to question themselves. Gaslighting is incredibly prevalent. It's used all the time. It's so common. So do you become so attached and so defensive of your perspective and your belief that you begin dumping on other people? Do you begin gaslighting them in an attempt to make them question their beliefs and their character just so that you're not uncomfortable having a conversation with someone else? You don't have to explain why you believe what you believe. Because let me tell you, someone who's incredibly confident in what they believe, someone that's really researched it, someone that's really done the really deep dive into it, they have no problems explaining why they believe what they believe. And they're not attached to other people believing what they believe, because of their belief in it is enough. I find so often that people who don't really understand why they believe what they believe, they're not consciously aware, they cannot articulate it. They really need a lot of other people to confirm it to them. They become incredibly defensive. And of course, we're generally speaking, we're not going into, things that harm other people. Of course, we're going to be passionate about that. If we're watching someone be harmed, or if there is a situation of, physical, emotional, sexual danger, of course, we're going to be passionate about that. We're talking about perspectives and beliefs. So we'll just kind of keep that in the middle. So do you feel this insatiable desire to attack someone's character just because they hold a different perspective? That might be a really big attachment indicator, to go a little deeper, because if you believe what you believe and you trust in it, that's enough. You don't need a huge group of people to fall in line with that, to confirm it to you, to confirm that what you believe is right. See, I know it's right. Look how many other people believe it. Look how many people believe many, many things that are dangerous or harmful. So that's not a great confirmation necessarily. Another thing that I often see happening is virtue signaling. Oftentimes when people have this real deep belief with that they're incredibly attached to, they often use virtual signaling against other people. I'm doing so much to help so many people. And if you are a good person, like I'm a good person, you would believe what I believe. But because you don't believe what I believe, you're not a good person. You're not trying to help other people. So it's kind of this blind confirmation in their own mind. They believe that what they're doing is helping other people. And they may have the best of intentions. That's beside the point. Most people do. Most people have the best of intentions. That's why they're doing what they're doing. But are they really helping? Do they really believe in it? Is it something that they truly understand so they can be solution oriented? Or does it just make them feel good to talk about it? To be, a keyboard warrior, as they say. Again, going back to, if you really believe that you're doing good, or you're getting your hands dirty, what solutions, what change have you created on a personal level? How many people have you personally helped out of that particular situation? What's your direct line of change? Because that shows that you truly care and that it's truly important to you, because you're investing time and energy into it. And you have the proof that it's important to you because of the people that you've helped directly change their lives, instead of just virtue signaling. I'm doing all of this good and you don't agree with me, so what you believe is bad. And that confirms that what I'm doing is good. It's good because I'm saying it. And I'm pointing it out to you gives me that blind confirmation that's enough. Just me saying it's enough. There's nothing wrong with saying it. There's nothing wrong with standing up for what you believe in. But if that's the only thing that you're using as a confirmation, and you're using it at someone else's expense, then you might check in with that. Is that really that important to you? Are you really creating change? Give me an example of how you're creating change. What have you, how many people have you inspired or affected in positive ways? So I believe this is all important, because this, one of the biggest components of sovereignty and being in your flow is personal responsibility. Are you taking responsibility for what you're doing? Are you taking responsibility for what you believe in by investing your time and energy into it? By getting your hands dirty, by putting some skin in the game, by living it. Not just once in a while, not just talking about it, living it, creating it, because it's an important facet of your life. We can even see these force points within nature. So often now in spiritual communities, I'll see people posting about tornadoes or hurricanes, for example, wildfires, any of those things that have been happening recently. And so often, instead of, people, please send your prayers for everyone, it's let's all come together and change, move the impact path of the tornado. Let's dissipate the energy of this tornado or this hurricane or these wildfires. And again, not going, this is generally speaking. So why are you interfering with Gaia's path, with her cycles? instead of staying focused on protecting your loved ones, yourself, your property, whatever the situation is, instead of staying focused on that, you have to interfere with an entire cycle of Gaia, which often, in my opinion, which I've seen over and over again, only adds energy to it and creates more destruction, creates a bigger cycle. So we'll be right back after this brief commercial and talk more about force versus flow. Welcome back to SoulFull Travel Adventures with me, Chameice Daniel, and we're discussing force versus flow. And as I was previously talking about all of the points of programming and force, because what that all leads us into, the bottom line and how this affects us as a global collective, is when we're all in our programming, when we're all in force, what it does is it creates chaos. It creates a lack of power within the individual structure, because everyone's going around trying to force their programs, their beliefs, their perspectives on each other. And that's pure anarchy. That's the very definition of anarchy. Anarchy is chaos. It's not having that harmonic template. It's a high narcissistic me state. That's what that frequency truly is. But when we're all in our sovereignty, when we're all taking responsibility for our choices, actioning our creations, what's important to ourselves, staying focused on our individual truth, and that magnetizes and attracts more people that are part of our monad, that are part of our soul groups. And we're here to create a reverberation of harmonic alignment, because each group is actioning their own individual truths. What that does is that moves us into higher harmonic alignment. Everybody is in their power. And we're creating a unity consciousness. Then that creates synarchy, divine alignment. We're all in our truth. We're all in our purpose, our passion. We're all thriving. No one's trying to take from anyone else. No one's trying to force things on everyone else. There's none of that disempowered chaos. Everyone's just in their truth, living their best life, because they're focused on what's important to them. Everyone's staying in their own lane. Everyone's doing their part. Everyone's taking responsibility as a member of our collective community. They understand the value and importance of unity consciousness and of everyone thriving. Everyone's doing their part. That's synarchy. And that's what we're trying to move into. So many people are talking about New Earth. What does that even mean? It means synarchy. It means we're all working together. We're creating boundaries and alignment as individuals, as ourselves, while at the exact same time taking our global community into consideration. There's that perfect balance. Sovereignty on an individual level and a collective level. We're in our truth, we're living our truth, we're supporting our truth, we're honoring our truth, but we're also extending that courtesy to other people. We're not saying my truth is more important than your truth. So in an effort to maintain our sovereign alignment, we're not forcing other people into what's important to us, into supporting what we want. We're allowing every single person to flow while we're in our flow of our truth. And this is going to be ever so important. What we're seeing will not go away until we all begin to anchor this in. It can get worse or it can get better, depending upon our individual responsibility. Acknowledging that we're a global community and that you're a member of that. That if you choose to create chaos and disempowerment in an attempt to anchor into your own power by forcing your will upon another person, that pattern, that cycle is going to have to keep playing out, because when you force something on someone else, you create a resistance force, and that must keep that cycle going. But when you're in flow, then that creates a reverberation, a cycle of flow. That's self-sustaining. It's harmonic. It's allowance of everyone else's journey and progression. No one's getting saved. So everyone has to take responsibility for their journey. Of course, generally speaking, we're not talking about violent acts, or we're not talking about extremes. This is simply a personal reflection point, an observation point of personal responsibility. We're taking responsibility. We're understanding that we have the power of choice, that we're capable. We understand how powerful we are, that we're not given a dream without being given the ability to create it. The universe does not work that way. That's just cruel. It does not work. So, will you be courageous enough to accept the challenge of really diving into your perspectives, to your beliefs? Why do you believe what you believe? Why is it important to you? Is it important to you? If it is, are you willing to get your hands dirty? Are you willing to invest something into it? Your time, your energy, your money? Are you willing to be part of the change, or just talk a good talk? Just force your perspectives upon other people. Are you willing to step up and be a member of our global community and create harmonic alignment? Are you willing to accept your sovereignty, which means you have to take responsibility for that? You're responsible for all of your choices and points of creation. Sure, it may take time to run out some programming so you can align everything properly into your full creation potential. That's one of everyone's most limiting factors involved in being able to manifest and create, is eliminating any of the programming that's contrary. A belief that you are not capable, not empowered, don't have access to what you need. That may be true right now because that's what you've been programmed to believe. And your parents might have been programmed to believe that, and their parents might have been programmed to believe that. So it might take some time to create new opportunities, to make connections to your monad, to have access to, truly have access to what you need. But it is possible. But first, you must believe it's possible, that you can even create opportunities of connection and communication. So you have to stop believing that you're not capable. You have to start believing in the possibility of it, first and foremost. So it is my greatest hope that we can all align into our sovereignty and move into synarchy. We can learn to work together. We can learn to share resources and opportunities and information to empower and unite, not destroy and divide. It's your choice. What are you going to choose? Because it's all energy. So behind your thoughts, your words, and your actions, the energy of that speaks volumes about the truth of what you're believing in. So if you truly believe in unity, prove it. Much love, many blessings. And I hope that you are inspired to live your best life, to create your best life. And I hope that you believe in your ability to do so. Have a wonderful creation experience. Bye, guys.